you said that key word future, and I think, and I tell this to clients sometimes, and I ask them, why do you think buyers buy businesses? And because I think they get stuck on, well, it's EBITDA times, a multiple,
Multiple.
right?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. EBITDA times a multiple. The EBITDA we're talking about is from the past.
Yeah.
So yes, they look at the past to try to judge future performance, right? They buy businesses to secure future cash flows,
That's right.
right? And so then it becomes a discussion, well, what's the certainty of those cash flows, right? Risk. So they really, you say you like to simplify things. I do too. And I say when they're asking questions and buyers are asking questions, they're all going to fall into one of two categories:
Yep.
risk
Yep.
and upside,
Yep.
right? What is the risk in this business? Can I define it? Can I mitigate it? Do I understand it? If you don't understand it, that's a problem, right? But
Yep.
usually, especially if you're talking about strategic or private equity, they understand the risk.
Yep.
And they're asking the questions because they know where the risk is. But upside, how do I grow this business?
Yep.
And so when we're bringing a client to market, we work a lot with them to understand their business intimately, and we say, okay, how do we grow it? Because that's going to be probably the second question they ask. First question is going to be, why are you selling?
Yeah.
And the second's going to be, hey, if you had capital and resources, like how would you grow this business?
Yeah.
If you don't have an intriguing story, I would argue you don't really have that much to sell
Yeah.
because they're not really there to clip coupons,
Yeah.
right? Coupons are good, but
Yeah.
and
Nice to have a
if
guaranteed
consistent
return.
cash flow, that's great. But usually, I find the conversation comes around, and sometimes that's part of the breakup message. Hey, enjoyed meeting you and your clients, and they got a great business, and they've really done a lot of great things, but
Yeah.
we just don't see the growth prospects there.
Yeah. And I think again, we talked about it a little earlier. You can grow a business, you can grow the top line and the profit margin of a business, and inject a lot of risk into it at the same time,
Yeah,
right? Like customer
sure,
concentration. You
right.
go land a big whale, and all of a sudden the valuation drops because now 40% of your business is with that one customer, right? So maybe that's a temporary problem, but
Right.
if someone starts to question it and you don't have a story around it, like, yeah, that was strategic for us, but we're quite aware that we can't maintain that level of customer concentration because it's dangerous.
Yeah, right.
But we have a customer diversification strategy and we're already executing on it. I always tell our clients, if you're gonna go to market or prepare to go to market, one of the great powers that you hold in your hands as the seller is the opportunity to fashion your story in a way that's compelling to one or more buyers, right? You can create competition and interest just by how you tell the story. But if you don't take the opportunity to fashion your narrative, your story at that time, you are missing a huge opportunity because somebody else out there, the buyer, is going to figure out how to tell it to you in their way. And now you've lost a great deal of your power, right? So the entrepreneur, the power of the seller, I think, is in the ability for them to tell the story in a way that literally nobody else on earth can do. Nobody. Because they're the ones that know the business. So we want them to start thinking about that pretty early, right, in the process.
Fashioning the story.
How would you tell this story in a way that no one could resist it? That I think kind of pulls the owner out of the day-to-day in a way, right? It's like, yeah, we're going to get into these tactical conversations about margin realization and all that kind of stuff. But you are the person as the owner in the business, the only one on earth that can tell the story in a very particular way. Nobody else is going to be able to do it, and don't let them, because you've given away your power when that happens.
Yeah, yeah. That's really a great tip, I think. Love that, thinking about looking at the future and sort of taking control of the narrative and the destiny, right? Rather than I'm going to work. All right, I guess I'll go ahead and sell.
Yeah.
And then you've at that point, it's too late. You haven't prepared for that time, and you've lost the opportunity to control that narrative, right?
Well, so, that goes to something that I've always pushed back a little on over the years, and that is, you hear the statement, my business is worth what someone will pay for it. Objectively, very objectively, that's true. But it kind of takes some of the it kind of takes some of the entrepreneurial incentive out of the whole conversation, because the idea that somebody else is going to dictate the value of the
Right.
business to you, I mean, if there's an upper end to that and I'm already there, then why should I keep trying, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, it puts me in a very passive kind of role in this whole thing. I actually think what I always tell our clients is, yes, somebody's going to have to decide what they're going to pay for the business, and that may be acceptable to you or not. You may get more than you expected, but you have a role. You play a role in moving the needle. You play a role, and it's unique in telling the story that's going to get them to say, all right, I do believe in a better future because of the story that you've told me about the past and where you think the business can go. So your business is worth what you compel someone else to pay for. There was a missing word in that sentence. And when I talk to owners about that, they're like, okay,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah.
Game on.
You're giving them an opportunity to take an active role in that
Absolutely.
outcome, right? Versus, well, let's see what the market has to say.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, when the time comes, somebody will
Yeah.
figure out what they want to pay me for it. Well, I think that's one reason why owners may not be all that excited about planning for it, because why plan in that situation, right? It's just kind of like, well, it'll be handed to us when we get there. So why worry about it? Let's just keep going.
That's an interesting way to look at it for sure. We're talking about transitioning. We're talking about legacy. If you're sitting in my shoes and I'm leading a sell side mandate, I'm representing a seller, and we're running a market process, right? We got multiple offers and multiple buyers under NDA, and they're interviewing us, and we're interviewing them too, right?
Yeah.
Aside from taking in offers and looking at the proposed structure and whatever, what kind of questions do you think that if you're advising a seller that they should be asking of potential buyers of their business?
Are you talking about like a strategic buyer of some sort?
Yeah, strategic buyer, private equity. Just I want to make sure I've only got one crack at this, right? It's my only business. I'm going to sell it. I've got employees that I care about. Maybe I have family members in the business. Maybe I don't. But my name's on the building. It's been my life's work. I've never done this before. I've grown this business. I've done a lot of things. I've done a lot of deals, in securing clients and sourcing great vendors and all these things. But now is the time to make sure that I'm selling to the right buyer. And let's face it, everybody can put on a pretty face.
Yeah.
Right. So you really got to ask the right questions and read the room and dig a little deeper, I think, to really to find the right buyer that's the best fit for your company, the legacy that you want to leave, for your people that you want to see succeed, that many of which perhaps you've mentored, you've managed, right? You've nurtured in all of those things. And just, is there any slant on that you have about how to really look at these buyers and ensure that you feel like you're finding the right one for your business?
First of all, I think in order to ask the right questions of a buyer, you're going to have to figure out what matters the most to the seller.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So if you understand that, then you've got context for the questions that you're going to ask a buyer. Now, there are relatively straightforward things like, of the businesses that you've bought in the past, what do you consider to be a success story, right? What excited you about those investments? Why did you buy those businesses? Like, did they have the right financial profile? Did you see something in the owner? Did you see something in the team? What triggered, right? When there was an opportunity, I mean, you know how many deals private equity groups look at in a year. They might look at 1,000 deals and do 2, right?
Yeah.
So as you look through all that opportunity, that whole universe of opportunity that's come your way, what is it about the deals that you do that makes you decide to do them, right? Everybody's going to have a different answer to that question, because I guarantee you, when you're talking to a financial buyer like a private equity group, they're going to have a significant focus on the finances. But when I talk to them, I did a panel discussion not too long ago with one of the managing directors at BlackRock. And BlackRock buys crazy big companies, right? $30 billion deals. They don't, but they have a real good operations team behind these deals that they deploy to help make sure that their investment is realized, right? So not every big private equity group has that kind of operational backup, if you will, that team that goes in. But I asked him, he was on the panel, I was moderating, and the audience was business owners. And so I'd already told him that the audience would not be $30 billion publicly traded companies. So he knew that we were kind of in that middle market space. And I said, you may just have to, keep that in mind. But the question was, hey, Mike was his name, when you receive a confidential investment memorandum, an investment presentation, right? Or you see the teaser and you're like, okay, that's worth looking at. Sign NDA, get the book. You're looking through the book. I'm like, which page do you turn to first? And I think everybody in the audience expected him to say, we look at the financial performance.
Right, yeah.
They've already tested a little of financial performance before they got something in the teaser on that. They know a little bit about it.
Yeah, right.
What didn't they get in the teaser, right? What they didn't get in most cases is a really good description of the leadership in the company, what their background is, what they've accomplished. He said, the first page I'm turning to is who's in leadership. And that's where my questioning will begin. If we turn to that page in the book and we see leaders that we think are probably not up to the challenge of taking the company where we're going to need it to go, most likely, in order to get back what we need eventually, then the chances are good that we close the book and we don't move any further. So I heard audible gasps in the audience when he answered the question that way. And one of the people came up to me afterwards and he was like, I was really struggling with whether to invest in a leadership team, right? But now I understand the importance of it just based on that one answer. I get it because I heard it from the buyers, the investors' mouth. So figuring out what matters the most, asking the questions that kind of surface why do you buy businesses? What's your motivation for making these investments? What worked for you in the past, right? Have you ever had a situation where the owner who stayed on potentially or their leadership team just knocked your socks off in ways that you didn't anticipate? What was happening in that situation? Because anybody that buys a business is not going to go, presumably not going to go in and just bottom out the management team that's been there for a long time. That doesn't make any sense to do.
Yeah.
That's a myth. So they're going to keep those people in place, at least for a while. What about a management team? What about a leadership team has clicked in past investments? What kind of communications would you expect? Communication style, culture. I think the culture piece is really important to understand, right? How have you, as an investor, strategic or otherwise, driven culture within the companies that you have acquired, right? And then ultimately, I think you're going to want to know if they still own those companies, right? If it's a private equity group, they may have exited depending on their fund life.
Yeah.
But that strategic buyer, what happened? What happened? For me, it's almost all about the other investments that they've made and what worked.
Sure.
Because that's evidence, right? That's the kind of story that they can draw on. And I honestly think I think it's kind of I think it should press them to tell that story.
Yeah. No, and I think we often ask similar questions like that might be more technical of the LOIs that you execute with sellers.
Of course.
What percentage of those do you close? And can we have the name and phone number of some of the other sellers that stuff like that. But I like the more open-ended questions like you've suggested. Talk to me about culture and how you've preserved the culture and enhance and those kinds of things.